Hello everyone and welcome to this video where we have a new update for the search and rescue aspect of the game. We're going to jump into that. We're also going to jump into a modification on my latest unreleased search and rescue catamaran that's hopefully going to be able to help you when it comes to these types of missions, and another fix. The other fix being we can finally jump back onto things. While that may not seem like a big problem or big issue, rest assured it is, and the fact it is now solved just means you can do stuff like this like previously. So that makes me really happy to see. Thank you developers for making the fix very quickly. I know the game has a ton of coding and programming and things, so even something as simple as, or what it seems as simple as the movement, clearly it was not as easy as just changing something. It must have been a setting that was done probably for the space or whatnot. So there we are, able to jump up and down very nicely on top of all kinds of things. So that's the first step. The second thing that I want to talk about is this. We get a new update, and not only is it any update, it is something that goes back to the basis of the game, what the game was pretty much founded on, and that is search and rescue. So V1.10.10, the person overboard update. And it reads, Crew Overboard. This minor update introduces new search and rescue content, person overboard missions. So first of all, I love when they add new missions. This is something that I've seen time and time again by my on my Discord server as recommendations, especially for bringing back some missions or bringing more missions into the game, giving you just the versatility and the ability to use your creations to sort of solve problems pretty much. And there was people saying that the missions were a little repetitive or something along these lines, which fair enough. You know, there's a couple of main types of missions and then you kind of let your freedom and creativity go crazy, but it is nice to get default missions that give us this type of jobs. So it says, these new missions involve locating and rescuing crew members who've fallen overboard from a vessel. Their location is unknown and they require locating and rescuing to a medical facility. And then as well as the new mission type, there's other important updates, fixes, and then they reminded us that we have the commercial fishing update in 2 weeks. So down here, patch notes, so we get the new overboard missions, and then we get some other issues that they fix, some gas spawner issues, aerial mobility. So aerial mobility, they fixed the ability to jump, which is great, that's a really big one, and all kinds of other things here, radiation and whatnot. Now, again, just having the new missions adds that extra bit of content, and not only that, I'm going to update my ship based on that mission type. So this catamaran, the RSV Ashford, not yet released. It's pending release and it will be released soon. But what's neat is now I can actually do an update or fix to it prior to the release of its release that can help with this type of mission. So what we do have in this vessel, and I've talked about this before, is we have this really nice nifty sonar system, and you can see now it is kind of actively hearing our propellers and it's sort of showing us that. Now if you do turn on that passive or active mode, you could get something like this. So it gives you the ability to have the two settings, and most of the time one or two of these should help you locate anybody that may be in the water. So I just spawned 3 sort of survivors there in the water. We got one there, we got one a little closer right there, you can't see, and one sort of way out there. And as you can see on the display now, we're getting the ones close up are very close, and then we get that one that is far away. So you kind of see that we get all of them showing up. So that would be the first place that I would check when I was searching for any overboard victims. This kind of works depending, but I think this is your best bet when it comes to just this type of system. So what I actually did is I added another survivor way out in the distance over there, and not only that, I've updated the system to actually go down to a very, very low amount, so it goes to 500 meters here in this case, and you can see them all clearly defined here. So it pings off them all. We got 1, 2, 3, and it pings off something else. We only have 4 survivors out there, but that is okay. It gets us a good reading on their distance and everything. And of course, if you go up, they will show, like, this is 1500, so it's not really 1 kilometer, it's 1500, but I like the ability to show them like this, because even that one who is sort of out there, that's not really that close. Like, I'd rather see that we've pulled up quite close to them. So that's number 1. The other system is a very rudimentary system using our good old player sensor. Now, something that I always do is I always have the player sensor inside the room, and it kind of reads the room and will tell the lights to turn on or whatever. So we do have that down here, for example. These are automatic lights, and it's guided by that sensor. But the nice thing about the sensor is it can actually read only NPCs too. So you could actually set it to read NPCs, and in that case, this would act like a very, very rudimentary player detector or survivor detector tool. So in this case, if we were just to put them, let's say here, on the front of the vessel, you could have a system, a very basic, very simple, not fancy by any means, but system that can detect NPCs in a hemisphere of 10 meters, and likewise here, detect NPCs in a hemisphere of 10 meters. Now, the nice thing about this is if you are in very stormy conditions, you may find your sonar isn't working, especially if you got a lot of rolling waves or debris or whatever. So in this case, it uses this sensor. Now, yeah, it's not really realistic. There's nothing in real life called detect NPC and a sensor that does that, but we utilize the Stormworks game to our advantage and to get sort of the results that we need to succeed in these missions. Now, first thing I always like to do is get a feeling of what exactly I've just done here. So keep in mind 10 meters in the game. If I drag this block out, you could see that that's 5. So you can imagine 10 meters is to there. That's 10.5. So 10 meters. So it detects a fair bit amount off the boat itself. Obviously not a very far distance, but enough that if you're in very poor conditions, you don't drive right past a survivor thinking that, you know, they're not there. So it may be that last ditch effort to end up sort of saving someone rather than saying they're kind of a write-off and you can't find them. For this boat, I also want to go the extra mile, so not only are we going to have that system, we're going to have another system mounted over here. So we're just going to cut open a hole there, and in the lower hold, you can see we have an opening now, so I could just seal that off with blocks like that if I want. It doesn't really, let's say, ruin the look. I could also just continue this exact same look with these. Now it really fits right in, and on the exterior it looks like this. So I'm just going to color them in, and then we'll put a pivot. Now the thing with this pivot is, the idea is, you'll see in a sec, but I think you may kind of guess, it is to add these pipes, and then to add on top of that NPC detector tool. So we're going to drag it out quite far like that, and then we're going to take this block, and you could see here that it works, and it does not work, it hits the hull. So we'll go extend it by 1 and throw that thing on at the front. There we go. So now that is on the end there. I may even want to do a little bit of coloring like that, or leave it gray. I honestly think it works either way. Maybe colored it's a little bit better, and of course I didn't do symmetrical, but I'm going to add that in a sec. One thing I did mention in my video to the developers as I was sort of predicting what was going to be released under this new sort of search and rescue type of thing, or when they announced that there's going to be some work being done on the search and rescue aspect, I got to thinking, what can it possibly be? And one of my guesses was new missions. Now that's not beyond the that's a obvious one. I'm not going to say that I read their minds or something, but even still, it's nice to see that they implemented something along those lines, and we got an update that gives us that ability. So I do like having that sort of knowledge that they've added something that's going to add a whole new aspect to the game. Oh, there we have it. I've added some lights on it too, so as it sticks out, it can have lights and kind of give us a wider range. Now keep in mind, I do have to turn on hemisphere, and it has to be set to NPCs only and max, and then likewise on this one as well, max and NPCs. And now when you toggle a button, these obviously have to swing out, and it should give you a decent amount of range. I think it should double. So you can see here it's 7 meters, so it's not huge, but it does give you an extra 7 meters of range, plus the fact that that's going to be like a hemisphere over on this side. Hemisphere. So yes, I can make this also read the non-hemisphere style, but the reason why I want to have it just facing forward is we're going to be performing sweeps and searches in that forward direction. Also, there's a glaring design flaw here that is going to hit into this if it rotates as it was. So I'm just going to have to rejig this setup a little bit into something like that. Now, I don't love necessarily how that looks, so I'll see if there's something else I can do. For this system, I'm going to make a very simple microcontroller just so I can end up using it efficiently, and I'm gonna remove some of these things. We're gonna put obviously an on and off button on man overboard detection system toggle. Okay, then it will have the number output for the pivots. So that's obviously, turn that on, the pivots are gonna have to rotate. Then we're going to have the lights that go on that arm, so you could actually enable or disable the lights. In addition to that, I'm going to want to be able to have the sensor reading in to me. Now, we have a number of sensors, so there's actually going to be 4 sensors in this case. So the 4 of them are going to be lined up, and they'll be reading the data. So in this case, we could have sensor 1 and kind of just repeat that throughout. So depending on which sensor finds it, we can utilize that. And what I also want to do is make it a little more complicated than this. So instead of this toggle detection on off, what I'm going to do is make it on a composite instrument panel. So on this instrument panel is, we'll call it the man overboard detection system instrument panel or panel, and we'll have both of these on and input or output systems, and we'll see if that's enough. Most likely there's going to be another row that has to be added, and that row is going to include something like lights or sirens or an alarm or something to tell us, okay, there's been someone detected. So I'm going to go ahead and put 2 here, and we'll call them on off. It'll be on off toggles. We'll call this survivor alarm left and survivor alarm right. And with that same idea here, we're going to want sensor 1 to be left, sensor 2 to be left, sensor 3 to be right, and sensor this one to be right. So that's going to actually give us the ability to detect which side we've seen or come across somebody and give us that warning. So we're going to delete whatever we had here and then set up all this stuff. Now it's going to be fairly easy little programming, nothing too crazy, of course, but still I do enjoy even simple ones, and we'll see if it does work afterwards. But the idea is that you use this here and you can toggle it via this switch here. So whatever goes here on the exterior of the boat, anytime I have anything like this, I do like and prefer to have a system to lock it in place to make sure it doesn't kind of swing around and hit things. So it wouldn't be a terrible idea in this instant here to also put one of these sliding grippers like that, and then have the connector track also attached to this track here. So we'll see how that works, but really what's going to be attached to is a simple command to disable or disengage this gripper. So you can see in this case the track is in that direction, so we'll just attach it like that, and once that's detached, that will freely be able to slide out and move outwards. So while not perfect, kind of looks a little clunky, I'd think, it should act functional, which is good. Also, I guess this could have been below rather than on top of the deck. Maybe it'll look a little nicer if it does that, and then instead of this being here, this can be there, and this can be mounted as such on that part. And then here we just have to put that gripper. Hopefully we didn't eat into any microcontrollers here, because there are microcontrollers all around in this catamaran, and there do not appear to be any that we've accidentally deleted. So always check that when you are working. And now that should be all, and the last thing is to put that and close off that hole in the hull and close off any other holes that may be in the hull. But it seems that is all. So in this case now just paint it up again, and that should be okay. As far as this is concerned now, that's, you know, just hanging out there, but it does look a little bit cleaner. Now back in our microcontroller, I'll make a addition, and it will pretty much just release the lock, release arm lock. And of course when the system's toggled, you're gonna release the arm lock. So not a big deal, very, very simple. Now this system again will tell you if there is something going on there, and then we can go ahead and connect it all up to whatever we have on our boat. I will have to add an extra instrument panel, as we know, so that is necessary. And do I have a lot of space? Not really. We do have this nice piece of ceiling that we could use for our instrument panel right here. And you can see that right now, that is my channel 1. My channel 2 is going to be this dial. So that is where these sensors or the buttons will go. So first button being the man overboard system, or activate man overboard detection system, and we will use a button that's toggle. Then channel 2 will include the man overboard detection spotlights. So that's just gives you the ability to turn them on without having to constantly sort of have them on And now this is where we put our indicators. So we'll have an indicator for channel 3 and an indicator for channel 4. So in this case, man overboard detected left. And that should be that left indicator. So channel 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this one is going to be right. Man overboard detected right. And that goes to that indicator. So that little instrument panel will be flashing red when we've detected somebody in those areas. Of course, connect the thing to the electricity. This is considered an electronic system, so I'm going to throw it into there. And then we got to connect everything in here. So we have sensor 3 right. Really, I didn't have to name them. Like I could have just said right. But anyway, when we are facing forward, which is what we're doing, this is our left. That means this is our right. And here, this is the other right sensor. Then we got left over here. And we got another left sensor over here. Okay, then release arm lock. Actually, what would have been even better in my microcontroller here is that you see here we have the different sensors, but what if I don't want to open up the arm? What if I want to leave the arms closed? Maybe there's rocks, maybe there's whatever. So instead of lights, what I would do, or what I'm going to do here, is change this. So this system on is just that, it's system on, and then this is man overboard arms extend. So in this case, when we press 2 is when we open up the arms, and that is when we turn on the lights, which now conflicts with this, because what if we have an NPC sitting on our deck, on the deck of our boat? So what I want to do is go in here and say sensor left arm and sensor right arm, and then sensor left hull and sensor right hull. So that way I could actually use the system even if I don't have these arms, and I could just not have the pivots, not have the arms, and just have it purely set up to receive information from a hull. Anyways, you see here we have the sensor left on the arm and on the arm. So right now it's detecting both. But what if we don't have this enabled? Well, very simple. AND function. We're just going to select an AND function and say if this is on and it detects something because of the sensor on the arm, then it is going to in fact trigger this sort of reaction. Whereas if it is not on, then it wouldn't even trigger this. So very simple, very easy. It just now reads that as an AND. So if we've extended it and we detect someone, then it goes into this. Whereas the hull ones will detect people, but you see now this actually doesn't work. So I caught my own mistake here. So this is only the first tier, and then this is the second tier with these things as OR. But not only that, we actually have to have an AND in both of these instances where our system itself, meaning our channel 1, is on. Otherwise, anytime you come across somebody in the water, that light is going to blink. No, you want it to only blink, only alarm you, only warn you if your system is on and these other arguments are true. So now this looks to be much more accurate, and then we just have to double check that in fact this is the hull. This should be the hull. That means this one here should be on the arm. Then we have our spotlights, which again are only on when it's extended. We have our pivots, which are going to be back here somewhere, pivot 1 and pivot 2. Just have to double check the direction of the pivots. So you could see here the arrow is positive when it goes in. So we should actually have this thing reading -1 in the microcontroller instead of +1. So it'll be -1. And then we got to finish the rest of it. So release arm lock, we have that here. Release connector, release connector. And let's see what else is left. Now these ones, we don't have to turn on these alarms, but we could if we want to. And then there's the actual instrument panel, which is the last step there and there. Now, actually, for the sake of completion, we will put in the blinker or the buzzer. Just have to be careful not to delete something else from this ceiling area. That should work, and then we actually have a bunch of other speakers in that area. There we go. So if we want to find someone on the left, I want my left buzzer to go, because that one is, I'm going to visually or audibly hear it on that side. Now in this case, that warning could work. That's fine, 200. And in this case as well, 200. Oops, wrong beep. I have to find the right one. Yeah, so it's this one. And then connect to electricity and connect to everything here. One addition I want to do is only have the arms extend if the system is also on. I don't want the lights on. I don't want the arms to extend if our actual system isn't even on. So that's the one little change there. And other than that, the boat's ready to be tested. So we're going to test it out with our NPCs here in the water. First things first, we got to start up the boat. And with it all started up, if I press this button, you see it does not extend. If I press that button, they extend and we get the spotlights on. So in this case now, you see that the system is active, and as we start to drive forward here, just being careful not to rip off our arms, it is flashing that we have detected the man overboard. Now granted, they're right there up against the hull, so that's good. Now if we pass them and keep going further towards that one over there, you can see right now there's no one. There are some to the left. Now again, this system does not detect massive amounts of distance or people. It's meant to be helping you in finding someone after you've used that sonar detector and kind of come closer, and especially in conditions where the actual sea is quite poor. So let's see if it's going to start blinking here. There you go. So does work, doesn't work very far, but again, let's try with massive wind and rain and everything. Not that much wind, but let's just say it's terrible conditions, and we're out here with this display on, and we're trying to give us the sonar reading. So again, because it's wavy, look at that. So now all of a sudden you cannot use that sonar to find someone. You just have to find them the old-fashioned way. So either you look with your binoculars, or you use the system that you developed. Now again, not a great system that searches everything, and I could almost see the appeal to having the arms search in a sphere, which may be quite useful. But as I make my way, there we go. So it started flashing, and I'd be able to stop and know that we got someone kind of in our general vicinity. And the fact that both of them flashed would almost imply that they were directly in front of us, so they very well could have been under here, near these propellers, which is not a great place to be. There they are. And saved. So that's kind of this system. Not, let's say, not an amazing advanced system, but it could be used to help and facilitate. Now I'm wondering if that's going to be flashing. See that? That's because this person is sitting within range of that there. So not ideal. These arms actually should be 10 meters extended. But regardless, you can see that it is sort of doing its job, especially when it comes to finding people in this type of sea condition where this is utterly useless to you. So, thank you for watching. I will polish up this system, but this is kind of just a very general basic overview of what I imagine could be useful for tracking down these man overboard situations. And stay tuned for more content, for more creations, and as always, happy Stormworksing, everyone.